What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Jared here from Team Pantheon, back again, once again, to bring you another deck profile in our long break of not doing any profiles or matches. Sorry about that, guys. Just a lot of real-world stuff and getting ready for set 14 and blah, blah, blah. But, enough excuses. So, like you guys can see, I'm bringing you my Eradicator deck from, all the support I have gathered from set 14. I've been testing it out. It's been doing well. And I feel comfortable bringing it to you guys, so let's just go ahead and get started. Now, for obviously, our starter is going to be Eradicator, Ambush Dragon, Linshu, the best starter for Eradicator as a whole. His skill is when he boosts an Eradicator unit and hits the Vanguard, you counterblast one and you soul charge him, and then you retire a grade 1 or lower rearguard. So, grade 3 Searcher starters, Conroe before he gets, banned in August as a starting Vanguard. And pretty much anything useful on your opponent's side of the field that's grade 1 or lower, it's Linshu's target. And he's good. That's why we use him, because he's going to be that pressure on the field if you don't get to, use him right away. So next we are going to jump into triggers. I have 7 crit, 5 draw, and 4 heal. Pretty standard, I would say, for an Eradicator build. Because it's Gauntlet Descendant, so I mean they enable crit, so you don't really have to have as many. You can do 6-6 or 7-5. Doesn't matter. You're still really getting your bang for your buck on the lineup. I mean, it's a pretty steady lineup. It's working fine for me, so I don't really see a need to change it. So, and obviously 4 heal, because you don't want to die. So there you go. For the grade 1s, we run 4 copies of Wyvern Guard Gold, the Eradicator version. He's a perfect guard. There's really nothing more to say about him. And also, unlike everybody else from set 14, we don't get our quintet wall till 16. So, it is what it is. So sorry, guys. Getting over being sick. Next up, we have 3 copies of Silverblood Eradicator Shuki, I think his name is. Anyway, his skill is when a rearguard is retired, he gets plus 3k, and it does stack, so he can become between a 10 to 16 or 19k booster or attacker. I mean, it really depends on how you use him and what's happening on your field during that time, but he's always good in an Eradicator deck, especially this one. So we run him at 3. You can run him at 4. I found 4 a little clunky, and I also had other units I wanted to try to fit in, so 3's been working fine for me. Next, we run 3 copies of the new card from set 14, Deadly Eradicator Uwe, or however you say it. His skill is when you ride an Eradicator Vanguard, or Murakami Vanguard. Yeah, it's Eradicator Vanguard. And he's on the rearguard circle. You soul charge him, and you retire a front row rearguard. And this is really good because in this deck, in like most Murakami decks, you will be rewriting your Vanguard a lot, whether from break riding or just rewriting from one Vanguard to another Vanguard, so like Gauntlet to Descendant, or sometimes even Descendant to Gauntlet Buster. It depends on the situation. So Oa is never really dead, and also he's an Eradicator name, so he's susceptible to Cho-Oh. So if you're not able to use him, you can still hit him with Cho-Oh, and then he still gets his skill, so it's not really a minus. So he's good. 3's fine. I've seen people run 4, but I don't really see the point, because he's kind of there, and you hope, you kind of hope you get to use him. I like him at 3 because I do get to see him, and he's a nice constant 7k boost, so he's always good. Next, we run 2 copies of Caster. His skill is when your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, you discard a card and draw a card. So he's a recycler. He's good at 2, and he's good either early game or late game, because late game you should be retiring a good portion of your opponent's field, or they should be recovering from retiring so much in this deck. So he's always good, and he's an Eradicator name, so that's always important. And then the tech card I have in here are 2 copies of Dragon Dancer Agatha, also another new card from set 14. Her skill is when you retire something, when the card is put into the drop zone by one of your card effects, you can Soul Blast her. Think about that. So we have a new way to utilize Soul in this deck, Soul Blasting. And you give your opponent, you give your rear guards, other Murakami rear guards, or Vanguard, So it's just specified in Murakami. You can give 3k, and like any other skill in this deck, it does stack. So if you're retiring 3 units, 4 units, if you have the soul, you can soul blast and give stuff 3k. So it helps you get some real like power pushes with the deck, especially because it helps cards that are usually not guaranteed to hit more. Gives it more ability to hit, like Choos or Zuatans that are at 9k. Playing with her, I've managed to pump both Choo and Zuatan up to 15k as an attacker, and then have her behind it, so it's like 23 or 27. Either way, like it gives more power plays to the deck, because instead of relying on your vanguards to do all the work and the Shukis to do all the work, she's a nice card to use, and it gives something else to use besides Soul, because most people use Rising Phoenix to get that draw, but I run 5 draws, so I don't really see a need to have more draw, so I put her in, and she's been working out wonderful for me. So 2 copies are good enough, and it doesn't alter the Eradicator count, and she's just good. I recommend everyone giving her at least a try. So that's my special tech of the deck. Then we have 2, 3, 4 copies of Spark Rain Dragon, the 12k attacker for Eradicators. I mean, nothing more to say about it. You need to play him. 4 Chos, pretty staple. Call to a rear guard or vanguard, and soul charge and Eradicator, blow up a front row. Enables a lot of your skills. Run 4, everyone runs them. Zuatans. Zuatans have found more use in this deck than my previous decks. I wasn't running Zuatans. I was running Thunderboom Dragons. But with the new support, more break ride wise, it's add a little bit more counterblast to the deck. So it's always nice to get a damage flipper in there, and also he does soul charge when he hits, so it also enables your Agathas. So it's always good, because like I said, by the time you're like going late game in this deck, your soul should be actually pretty big, so you could be able to use her a good amount of times. And everything in this deck holds Eradicator name, so that's really important. Next up, we run 2 copies of Eradicator Ignition Dragon, and then 1 copy of Vowing Sword. Now, before I get the comments about why am I running Vowing Sword, the only reason why I'm running Vowing Sword is because I cannot find another Ignition, and I have been looking high and low. So, as of right now, he's only in there until I find my 3rd Ignition. So, he's fine. He does well. He's a free break ride, so he's always good. Rider something rides him plus 10k and retire a front row. Ignition's the same thing, except you got a counterblast and your opponent chooses 2. But the only difference between the 2 is that they're plus 2k skills. Vowing Sword, your opponent has to have 3 or more damage. Ignitions is you have to have more rear guards than your opponent. So a little bit different, but pretty much the same. And then we run 3 copies of Gauntlet Buster Dragon. His skill is Limit Break 4. When you retire something, he gets plus 3k in critical. And with the Ignition Break Ride, it is busted because he gets 2 crits and 6,000 power for 1 counterblast. And that's really good. That's really efficient. So you don't have to really... You get to decide whether if you want to use Gauntlet Buster's secondary skill of counterblasting 2 Eradicators and making your opponent choose to retire something either right then or later. So, this deck is very synergistic, finally. Like, a lot of things work together. And, last but not least, we run 2 copies of the card that makes people rage sometimes. Not as much as he used to, but, he's still good. Eradicator Dragonic Descendant. I run him at 2. I was running him at 3, but, with the new stuff, I decided to bump him down to 2. And it's fine. It's doing well. I still see him. I actually see him half the time more than Gauntlet Buster, and I run Gauntlet Buster at 3. Maybe that's a sign. Anyway, his skill is Limit Break 4. When you attack and your attack fails, you can Counterblast 1, remove 3 Eradicator cards from your hand, and re-stand with plus critical. So, you know, he's the game ender card in this deck. Arguably still one of the best finishers in the game right now. And his Counterblast 2 skill gives 5,000 power, special Counterblast. You don't really use it. If you do, you're trying to push for game, or you might be in a bad situation. I mean, hate to say it that way, but it's kind of true. Well, guys, that's my deck, my Eradicator deck, post-set 14. This deck is always going through evolution, so it might change, it might not change, so I'll be, as soon as I change it, or whatever, or I come up with something better that I find is worth bringing to you guys, I will definitely throw you guys into the deck profile. If you guys like what you saw, you know, rate, comment, and subscribe at the bottom, and, you know, I'll probably be trying to throw up some matches with this deck, so you guys can see it in action. So, see you next time. Peace.